I'll be right back. Just 2 seconds here.
So Tricia, is Joe going to be joining us to start the meeting?
No, was he supposed to?
Well, according to the agenda, yes.
Well, look at that. Joe is away. So, boy,
So
I guess I can try to fumble through that. Is this the call for the chair?
that is correct. Yeah, you're the senior staff person on
Oh,
the
man.
meeting, so you're the ones got to call for the election of the chair.
Help us all. Okay, perfect. So,
The hot seat is all yours.
Would we be able to just confirm who's in attendance before we get going?
sure.
Yes, please, Alana, are you the one that's going to be taking the minutes and confirm that we have a quorum?
Yes, I've got the list here.
Okay, so do a roll call.
Oh, okay. We've got Commissioner L. Casely.
Commissioner Fike, alternate director for Leonard Casely.
Okay, perfect. Alternate. And we have Commissioner L. Main.
Yes, I am here.
And Commissioner W. Popoff.
I am here.
And Commissioner E. McKeel, sorry.
He informed me she's going to be running a little bit late this evening, but she will join us a little bit later on here, hopefully in the next 15 or so.
Okay. Commissioner R. Johnson. Commissioner H. Robertson.
calling Richard Johnson, and then we all got terminated somehow. So when you want to continue with
Okay,
H.
and
Robertson?
Richard was not present, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so yes, Commissioner Robertson
Yes, I'm here.
and Commissioner Yakachuk,
Here.
and we have Commissioner Hemphill
Present.
and Commissioner Law.
Present.
Okay, and then is Craig on the line as well?
Craig Stanley?
Yes.
No, he is not.
No? Okay, so it's just Trisha and I, yeah. Excellent. Okay, so we do have quorum. 1, 2.
Okay, Tricia, you're on the spotlight now.
Perfect. All right. Well, this is my first go at this, so thanks for that. So I will call the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. And being that this is the first meeting of this calendar year for Recreation Commission 6, we need to elect a chair. So I am Tricia Davison. I'm the Regional Manager of Recreation and Client Services, and have had the pleasure of working with this group now for some time. So I am going to open the floor for nominations for election of the chair. I'm going to call for nominations 3 times. And so my first call for nominations for chair will go now.
And I will nominate Casey Law.
Okay, we have Casey Law. Casey, do you accept that nomination?
I do. Thank you, Director Popoff. I appreciate that. I do stand for chair,
Perfect, thank
for
you.
nomination for chair.
Great. Are there any other nominations for chair? Calling for a second time, are there any other nominations for chair? And a third time, nominations for chair. Well, congratulations, Casey. You are officially the chairperson of Rec Commission 6 for this for the year 2025. So I will now turn the
Thank you.
meeting back over to you.
Yeah, you
Thank
have to make that
you, guys.
declaration, Tricia.
So I, Tricia Davison, Regional Manager of Recreation and Client Services, ratify the appointment of Director Casey Law as chair of the Area H, New Denver, and Silverton, Slocan Lake Recreation Commission number 6 for 2025. How'd I do, Walter?
Perfect.
Nice. Thanks for that.
You
For
sound
now,
like
I'll
you
turn the
know what you
meeting
do.
over to Casey.
Thank you kindly as your newly elected member chair here. Thank you. I just want to take a moment just to thank the commission for all the time that they put in the last 2 years I've been on, and look forward to going forward with positive energy and coming forward with solutions to any potential dilemmas we may encounter, as well as promoting recreation in the Slocan Valley Area 6. That was my less than 2 minutes. I know it went the other way around, but I'm actually just waiting a moment to make sure. Commissioner Director Fike, are you still with us on the meeting? I see your camera's up, but I can't hear you or see you. Just want to make sure, because he was on before I proceed.
Yeah, can you hear me now,
Oh,
Casey?
you are there. Yeah, okay, you're on board. Perfect. Thank you. Don't see you there, though, just so you know.
I
Okay,
just put
moving.
my camera back on.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Thanks. So moving on through our agenda, so the traditional land acknowledgement, I'll provide that statement now. We acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we are meeting today, and where we're coming from, where we're meeting online. Item number 4 for this agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I'm looking for a mover to adopt the March 4th, 2025 Slocan Rec Commission meeting.
I'll move it, Commissioner Fike.
Okay,
Second.
I've got
Second, Director Main.
Fike and Main. Thank you. All right. Since we're meeting online, I'll just ask in the negative form per se, is there any opposed to the adoption of the agenda as presented? Looking, seeing, hearing none, the motion is passed to adopt the agenda. Moving on to item number 5, which is the receipt of the minutes that the November 7th, 2024 Rec 6 minutes have been received. No need for a motion on that.
You
No
don't need a motion. Once we adopted the agenda, the minutes have been received.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you. No need for a motion. Thank you. No delegations this evening presenting, so be moving on to item number 7, which is a correspondence item. That's 7.1 from Rebecca Sargent regarding the New Denver Gymnasium bookings. That has been received. I don't believe we need to make a motion for it in this context. I know at council meetings we do motion to receive them, but Walter, if I'm not mistaken, it forms part of the agenda and the minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have been received, and if anybody has any comments on them, I guess probably would be appropriate to ask.
Sure. Be a good time to. It does tie in to our item further, the next item. But if anyone would like to take a moment to specifically address that, this would be the time then.
I guess I can speak to it. It's been sort of on the radar for a while with this commission. Like the Aikido group that Rebecca's sort of running is they check all the boxes and wanted to have a symposium next summer. And it came up about third-party bookings and the commission's sort of public time and third-party usage. So that's what we're covering today. And I think Rebecca's letter was quite good. I think if we can arrive at something simple and effective and efficient, then we'll be moving in a positive direction, as you stated, Casey.
Thank you, Alternate Director Clark. Does anybody else have any input? To see Director Main raising your hand. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. So I read over the document, and even though it's formal and wordy, it seems to be a reasonable approach to the situation. The way we left it after our last meeting, there was a lot of dissatisfaction in the community that groups couldn't use the gym. Groups that had been using the facility for doing classes and such, all of a sudden couldn't do it. So I think this is this is a better approach. Like I said, it's a little formal and wordy, but it protects us and it protects the users and the community. So I'm generally in favor of it.
Thank you, Director Main. Your comments in regards to Rebecca Sargent's email and how they pertain to the next item coming up, the report. Was that what you're referring to as being wordy, or I wasn't quite sure? Or the email? just for
the email.
All right. Okay. Is there anybody else that wanted to comment on the correspondence? I just wanted to say, just appreciate Rebecca taking the time. She obviously cares about providing Aikido in the community. And she mentioned at the bottom, it's not a hill for her to die on, but she had some good suggestions there. And if we can hopefully implement them in a way that satisfies. Anyways, I'm not going to get too wordy about it, but I just want to thank her for the letter and bringing forward the request to the commission so that we can further implement those ideas if possible. All right. So now that there's no one else that wants to weigh in on that, I'll move on to our staff report. And that's going to be item number 8.1, which is the third-party usage for New Denver Gymnasium. And that is the report dated for today from Tricia Davison. I just want to thank her right at the top for putting all that work in. There's a lot of detail that goes into these, and I know it's been a process. So I just want to hand it over to you and give you a hand for putting that together and getting it into a timely fashion for us to carry forward to the spring. So, and on that note, would you mind taking the floor and maybe walk us through the report, if that seems appropriate?
I can definitely do that. And through to Commissioner Main, I would have fully expected someone to say this is wordy as well. So I would have totally taken that as a comment towards just government administration in general. So thanks for that. Anyways, I will walk through the report maybe before I jump into the recommendation, which I think is really where the crux of the conversation needs to sit tonight. I just want to walk through maybe some of the background that got us to this point, just to ensure that everybody's actually on the same page. And so just a reminder, so back in the fall of 2024, well, actually it dates even further back than that, but where I would say really formal work really started on this was back in the fall, where a working group originally met and then came back to commission with some information related to third-party usage of the New Denver gym. My recollection of that meeting was twofold. One was that it was kind of lukewarm as to whether this was something the commission wanted to entertain or not. However, we did agree that one of our first courses of action would be to meet with CAO Alam, I think that's how you say his last name, CAO Alam, in New Denver, recognizing that New Denver is a primary partner in the success of the New Denver gym. And some of this does fall to New Denver staff to ensure the success of that service. So before we did anything, we wanted to sort of check in with him. So that conversation happened. There was a subsequent conversation with some members of the New Denver Council that also occurred, more or less kind of speaking to what Commissioner Main is referring to, which is, hey, we really want to see this happen. How can that work? That led to multiple other meetings with Commissioner Law and Commissioner Fike over the last little while, which culminated in the report that you see in front of you today. So I think one of the things that's important to recognize is this is a process to try to figure out one, administratively what's possible, but also to make sure that as commissioners, you're going into this eyes wide open. And I think that has been a bit of a flavor of some of the conversations all along, which is to not lose what has been deemed an important public asset within New Denver and in how the community has historically looked to use it, and not to interfere with that usage that people have grown to enjoy. It's a wonderful asset that people have some freedom to come and go through. However, there's been a desire to ensure that possibly through third-party usage, that additional types of services might be able to be provided to the community in different ways. There just can be some give and take on what that looks like. So this report, I will call it wordy, but it is really meant to make sure that all of the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, to make sure that you're clear on the different components of what this means. So I'm not going to walk through the report in its entirety. I think I'm going to just hit some of the highlights in case you haven't had a chance to read it in detail yourself. There is a supporting document that aims to sort of flavor ultimately the staff report, but sort of to share some of the other things that I think are never going to show up in a facility use document, like from a user perspective. They will show up in roles and responsibilities between what is expected from commission, what's expected from staff, what's expected from New Denver, so on and so forth. I think that's kind of an important component to clarify a little bit around, as well as making sure that we can agree on the types of usage we're permitting in that space and how that administration would unfold. So there is the supporting document that follows the report that kind of outlines a lot of those details. What I think is most important is, now I'm going to focus back on the recommendation, is actually walking through probably those 7 points because it points back to other components within both the report and that supporting document that I think help highlight to me the most important components of what I've written. Is everybody okay with that so far? That plan? Okay, good. Okay, so number one is, I believe that one of the recommendations of the commission tonight is to agree to a couple of different things. So the first one is to philosophically allow exclusive third-party usage of the New Denver gym during the established non-public hours. And so fundamentally, we need the commission to have a consensus that that is what you want to do. And I know that's not getting into detail, so don't dive into the detail yet. It's just philosophically to agree to number one. So maybe I'll turn it over to the commission for discussion.
Alternate Director Fike here. Yes, I would speak to philosophically agreeing to allowing exclusive rentals of the new Denver Gymnasium.
Director Main here. I also agree that we philosophically agree that it is the purpose of having a facility like this.
I would agree as well.
And Director Popoff agrees also.
And I would agree.
I would also agree.
As do I.
Thanks, Casey.
This is Mitchell, also agree.
So
Thanks,
therefore, I will move that recommendation that the board directs staff to finalize all administrative aspects to allow third-party bookings of the new Denver Gymnasium, ensuring alignment with the direction from Area H, New Denver, and Silverton, and Slocan Lake Recreation number 6 at the March 4th, 2025 commission meeting. And it's a direction to staff, so I believe we don't need board approval.
I'll second the motion.
Or Tricia, would you like board approval?
I am fine with not going to board approval, and I say that with a bit of naivety in that sometimes I am confused as to what must go to the board versus what doesn't have to go to the board. In my opinion, this is a service that already is established that you are making a choice on. It's a service that in some ways used to exist. So to be honest, Walter, I would default to you that if you think this is something the board needs to approve. Joe didn't take this out, which is my only caution as to whether this should go to the board.
And when I look at it, it's a direction to staff, and it's just a philosophical direction that we're given. Later on, when you become more definite of direction, that needs to happen, then we might have to go to the board. So at this point, unless somebody here objects to that, Casey, it's your meeting, and I don't want to interrupt it or whatever, but that's my view on it.
Thanks, Director Popoff.
So we do have a motion on the floor that's being introduced by myself, seconded, and
right. So now there's a discussion point around that. Around that motion. Yeah, I just want to, just for the record, I think, Alana, you have noted that Commissioner Johnson is now in the meeting, as well as Commissioner McKeel.
Yes.
And just to get Commissioner McKeel up to speed, we're on 8.1, which is the discussion around the staff report for the New Denver Gymnasium use, and we were discussing the 4.0 proposed solution and the philosophically agreeing to allow exclusive use of rentals at the New Denver Gymnasium. Director Popoff has put a motion forward that is the motion that is on the agenda. It's been seconded, as he mentioned, so it's up for discussion right now to make the motion and whether it's going to be going to staff or to board. But from what it sounds like, we could potentially make this a staff direction at this time. We have our May 8th meeting that would allow the appropriate timeline, if I'm not mistaken, Tricia, for a potential start for August 1st for this pilot. Is that okay? You're nodding your head there. So I just wanted to get you up to speed on that. And then, and Tricia, if you wouldn't mind weighing in, we've got a motion now, and we've started talking about the points on the commission to agree upon. Does it seem prudent then to have the discussion right now and more in depth about the report, or complete a vote and then try and go through this to some more fine degree, so we can get some things ironed out?
In my opinion, what makes most sense is that even the direction of to staff to finalize all the administrative components does require us to actually answer questions 2 through 7. So because that's what will finalize those administrative components. So I do think we need to walk through the recommendation. So one, it sounds like everybody has agreed that we want to philosophically rent the gym during non-public time. So check. We can move forward from there. Are you okay with that, Casey?
I'm okay, and we can leave the motion on the floor, and this is part of the discussion. So that as long as the commission and Walter, if you feel that is appropriate as well. Director Popoff, sorry.
Yeah, so if I can comment on the motion, I'm having a little bit of second thoughts on not going to the board, because I guess the board has to approve staff to work on this. So, and the recommendation reads, the recommendation is to the board that the board directs staff to finalize that. So, yeah, a little bit of reversal in my initial opinion that it's direction to staff, but it has to be approved by the board. So staff is authorized to work on this.
Okay, duly noted. So there will be a direction to staff, but it's still going to be a recommendation to the board. And then further to, we can continue forward with the process at this point, though. You're good with that? That Trish has provided for us through 1 through 7 before we make this direction?
Well, we have a motion on the table, and I believe we should either vote on that motion, either approve it or reject it, and then Tricia can go through all the points that staff will address as a result of that motion.
All right.
Alternate Director Fike, yeah. So if we don't approve the motion, we can bring it up again later after Tricia has discussed all of the 7 points, and we can maybe make some alterations or whatever. Is that I perceive it that way, Walter?
Well, when we, if I may, through the chair, once we review all those points, we can make changes to those points as we go forward on it. And, we made the motion, but those are the points that's going to be addressed as a result of that motion. And if we're not comfortable with any of those points, we can ask they either be removed or changed. Everybody's comfortable with that?
So no vote on the motion through the chair?
No, I believe the suggestion was to have the motion, and then Tricia work through the rest of the report, and the commission can change or alter the points that the commission is fundamentally agreeing to. But we're just going to be voting on the motion in the agenda, which states that the board directs staff to finalize all the administrative aspects to allow third-party bookings of the New Denver Gymnasium and ensuring alignment with the direction from Area H, New Denver, and Silverton, and the Rec Commission stakes.
Through the chair, Alternate Director Fike. So we're just going to go through, and for those who came in late, we've everybody who was present before you guys joined us, we all philosophically agreed to allowing exclusive rentals of the New Denver Gymnasium. And maybe we should just ask the people who weren't present there what they feel about it, yes or no?
I think that's reasonable. Commissioner McKeel is giving a thumbs up.
I said I was agreeing with that in principle. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Johnson, or Commissioner Johnson. Okay, so it sounds like we have consensus on the philosophical aspect of having exclusive rentals at the New Denver Gym. Is there any further discussion in regards to the motion? Because then I will call the question so that we can move forward. Looking, seeing, hearing none. I'll just I'll call the question then. Is there any that are not in favor of the motion on the table right now? Please identify, speak up, or otherwise let me know. Looking, seeing, hearing none. There are no opposed. Therefore, this motion is carried. And thank you very much, Tricia. If you would be so kind as to carry us forward with the other 6 points.
I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So through the
Thank you.
chair, number 2 is talking about the types of usage that would be permitted in the gym. And maybe just for everyone's clarity, the gymnasium being referred to is just the gymnasium. It has nothing to do with the actual fitness center space. In case that nuance wasn't picked up in the report, this is purely on the gymnasium side of the facility. That's the only space being considered in this report for exclusive rental use. So just for everyone's clarity. So in the supporting document that follows the report, I itemize a little bit more in more detail as to what number 2 is talking about, which is recommending that the permitted uses that support individual health and wellness, that have a focus on physical activity, group fitness, sport activities, or other recreational activities involving physical movement would be the types of activities that would be permitted in that space. And maybe just a bit of an elaboration from a staff perspective. One is that those types of uses coincide with the types of uses that that space seems to support well, but it's also in recognition that those activities can function within the space as it is now. They don't require things like tables and chairs and other types of equipment for the types of purpose that those spaces could be rented for. It also, in the supporting document, talks about a host of things related to specific terms that we would be recommending related to these types of uses. And we've just itemized a few. There could be others. But things like food and beverages are not permitted in the space. Obviously, water for individual consumption is fine. Clean footwear is required, so no outdoor footwear would be permitted. Tables and chairs are not available for use by the renter. And storage of any equipment or items anywhere on site would be strictly prohibited. Obviously, there's little to no storage in the space, and so we don't want anyone, even if they were somebody coming on a weekly basis from Tuesday at 4:30 to do something, that they would not be permitted to store anything in the building. Use of personal equipment, i.e. bringing people their own tables and chairs, could be considered with advanced notice at the time of booking. So if there was something, and I'll use the Aikido event as potentially something that could be this type of event where it meets the permitted use type activities, but maybe the type of event does require them to bring a table and some chairs for promotional materials, or maybe they need it for something to do with the actual event. Obviously, things like that could be considered, and through the booking process with our staff, we would walk through what that would mean and making sure that people don't leave that equipment in the space, and that they're obviously responsible for ensuring it's in good condition. A couple of other things, and this is actually just talking about it being booked during non-public time, which we can talk a little bit more later, but that is generally what number 2 is looking to focus on. So I think what we're looking for from commission is agreement that those would be the types of activities that could be permitted in that space.
Through the chair, alternate director Fike. Yeah, so Tricia, you're on point 2. You also sort of, I think we went to point 3 as well, agree on the general terms of usage. So yeah, so you also talked there about general terms of usage. Is that true?
I talked about, I think what you're thinking of, are you looking at page 2? Sorry, I'm looking at the actual recommendation section,
Okay.
Director Fike. So
yeah, okay.
So sorry.
So only, okay, I get it. Only permitting uses that support individual health and wellness within the focus. So that's what you're looking for consensus on, true?
Correct.
Okay, I'll say yes. I guess we want to go around.
I'll agree.
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 Commissioner Law, agree. And sorry, I think I said section 4.0 but you're right. It's section 1.0 staff recommendation. My apologies. It's page 11 of the agenda. If anyone's still trying to find that.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Any
And
opposed? Sorry, Heather. Yeah, you're in agreement. Okay. Just to confirm. Okay.
Okay, so through the chair, I'll continue on to number 3, which is I've briefly talked about already, but is actually getting your confirmation and approval that only the gymnasium portion can be used by third-party users. So use of the fitness center and associated equipment would not be permitted as part of third-party usage. So if somebody wanted to come in and do what's a good example? Maybe a group circuit class in the gymnasium portion. They do not have use of the dumbbells, bands, any equipment from the fitness center. That equipment stays in that space and is for the use of the fitness center members as it is right now. So just for clarity on what that's referring to.
There any opposed or anyone with comments on that? I just wanted to speak to that, Tricia, just as a side note, with RDCK staff like Jessica Brown, a fitness instructor, if she comes up and does something through the RDCK that is something different, that it'd be possible that we could provide some use of that space, training and doing things like that, as we've done in the past, where there's been a beginner-friendly day to use that equipment as well. But not in this case for the specific third-party rental policy. That's not.
Yeah, through the chair, you're
accept.
exactly correct. And the goal is that we then control our monitoring our equipment that the commission has purchased for the fitness center, and that space is available to the public in the way that the public would expect it to do. Even when in our own fitness centers in our larger facilities, we're extremely careful in how we typically do not do small group fitness classes in any of our fitness centers. We will allow personal training by our trainers in our fitness centers, but even that we spread out, knowing how it can be perceived that people expect to be able to come to the fitness center and be able to move about the space and use the equipment the way they want. And sometimes when you start doing small group activities or even personal training, that can impact other people's usage. So for now, my suggestion is that everything to do with the fitness center is off limits to third-party usage.
Thanks for the clarification, Tricia. And just once more, any commissioners, directors wanting to weigh in on this, or any opposed to this item, number 3? Okay, looking, seeing, hearing none. It seems that the commission is in consensus on that item. We move forward. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Number 4 is tied a little bit to number 3, but it's just, again, trying to be explicit for everyone, is that at any time that the facility can be accessed, the fitness center remains available to the public. So for example, even if there is a third-party usage on the gym side of the facility, the fitness center is still open and operational to the public so that they are not impacted whether there's a booking on the gym side of the facility. So for those that are really familiar with that building, you will appreciate that we'll have to do some work and thinking through signage and kind of some directional information for people that if there is a booking on the gym side, we then need to segregate the public from being able to go to the gym side, and certainly from the gym coming into the fitness center side. And obviously there's some nuance just with how that building is sort of set up, but more to just help the public understand when those spaces are being used for this purpose. But the goal being that we always want to ensure that we're protecting use of the fitness center to your membership that uses the building and pays for a membership for that reason. So that's what number 4 is referring to.
Thanks, Tricia. Just a quick follow-up. I know we talked about this when we had a meeting, but just with the washrooms and the being able to access them, that would be a nuance. Would that be correct to say that could be utilized? Okay, thumbs up still. Okay, any commission members or directors want to speak to item number 4? Okay. And any opposed to that item being recommended as part of this? Thank you. Looking, seeing, hearing none. Thank you. We'll move forward then. We have consensus. Move to item number 5, please.
So item number 5 may take a little bit longer, but I'll just point you to the sort of draft details for consideration document where I outline a host of different things related to conditions of use, roles and responsibilities, and some of the things we've already touched on. I think what's really important to notice about this document, and this, if you're not familiar in the ways that someone like me might be familiar with third-party usage, this gets really detailed and really points a lot of responsibility to the renter. And the reason that that is the case is because we don't have a staff complement to deal with the ongoing things that can come with third-party usage. So this is trying to outline and would form part of the contractual agreement with a third-party user, some of the things that they would be responsible for. And this is not meant to be an exhaustive list either. It's just the things that come to mind to me that would need to be addressed within that letter and reviewed as part of them signing an agreement with us. So it talks a lot about things like being responsible for conduct of both themselves and anybody that is permitted in that space under their watch. So that's where they're going to have some caution of saying, hey, we want to make sure that then public are not accessing our space and our group is not going into the other space, because we're now responsible for people in those spaces. And so we want to be careful with that. Certainly can, and they would be responsible for controlling that access, but we also need to give people the tools to be able to do that. So I'm thinking in this case, it's largely signage and communication strategies so that we can help sort that out for them. Certainly ensuring the respect of the public that are on the fitness center side. You don't want to have the third party usage impact the experience that people are used to having on the fitness center. So we would expect them to be sensitive to those things. Ensuring any access requirements, and I don't want to pretend to know all of what these nuances might be, but they would be responsible for ensuring that all access to the facility, whatever requirements we set out, are met. They would be responsible for site inspection to make sure that the facility is in a state that they can use it. So say, for example, there was a roof leak and suddenly there's a pooling water on the floor. They would be responsible for saying, hey, that's not safe. We can't be in here today, and making the choice to not continue with their service, and then obviously reporting that to us. Certainly things around building security. So however we manage fob access to the space, picking up the fob, returning it to the village office, making sure doors are secure, all of the elements related to the minute we turn over access to somebody in a different way, that becomes part of their contractual responsibilities. I've talked about reporting facility concerns, conduct of other people and certainly their group, making sure that people that are not permitted in the space are not in there. So again, it kind of talks a little bit around access, but in my mind, that's a little bit different. And recognizing, and I was thinking of village staff in particular with this comment, but recognizing that they need to be self-sufficient. So I thought it was important, and would be unique in this situation compared to what expectations people may have if they rented a space in, say, the Castlegar complex or in Nelson, where there's kind of an expectation that they can rely on staff for all kinds of different things. Where in this case, we're saying you need to recognize that this space is what it is, and this is the level of support we can or can't provide. And so therefore you need to be self-sufficient and organized to go into the space to use it. So it's just setting up front some expectations with people in the hopes that that does not create any issue for, in particular, village staff. I talk a little bit about access, but I won't go into those details, but there's some information there because obviously people would need to understand how they go about getting their fob, what that expectation is related to when they need to plan in advance to get that, so that, again, village staff are not getting inconvenienced by, people forgetting or losing their fob or whatever it may be, making sure they can access the facility, testing all those things out so that it's not a call, at the end of the day on a Friday or on a Saturday, heaven forbid, when, suddenly somebody realizes they can't do something that they thought they were going to do, because really we need them to be thinking along with us to make this actually successful. So I talk a little bit then about Village of New Denver responsibilities. Some of this is very similar to what New Denver already does, with the difference being that there is accessing, how they access a fob and returning it is going to be a little bit different. I think we need to work that through with the village staff some more, but it does sort of outline kind of where the village responsibilities sort of sit. I talk a little bit about RDCK responsibilities and how, our primary responsibility is going to be managing the communication with the person booking the space, making sure their contracts are in place, that they have the appropriate insurance, that fees are paid, figuring out a communication strategy with the village to make sure that we can say, hey, we've got a booking that's starting next week on Tuesday. Be prepared for Sally Smith to come in to collect a fob. That's type of information that figuring out a way to streamline that is going to be probably the component that's going to take the most work, because it's going to rely on people, and in absence of people due to illness, vacation, any number of things, it's where that type of communication can really fall short. So we'll have to really think through what system is going to make sense there long term. So again, a bit of a work in progress. And maybe just some things related to the commission's responsibilities. So obviously, your roles and responsibilities don't change a lot. You would continue to provide governance for how the gymnasium is being used. You would review and help to establish the fees for the actual booking of the space. Certainly reviewing how this is working and making sure that it feels sustainable and that it's meeting the needs of the community. I go into a few details about other administrative things that to me make some sense, at least for the pilot term that I'm also sort of suggesting we have with this project. So, for example, that I'm saying we only permit one booking a day. So, for example, I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong. I think non-public time during the week, it runs from approximately 4:30 till 7, I think, or something along those lines. Sorry, don't quote me on that. But as opposed to trying to say, well, how many bookings could we actually fit in that space? Realistically, you're probably only going to get one. So let's pretend it's a fitness class that's an hour long. They would actually need to book the hour of the fitness class plus whatever time they need on either side of that booking in order to get into the facility, get their space set up, make sure they're ready to, let people come into the facility. So all of that time becomes part of the booking of being able to access it. From a management perspective, I think only allowing one booking for now during that time is going to make sense, just to make sure it's smooth. I think that could work. We could certainly evaluate it over time, but that's part of my recommendation. And certainly that our administrative staff within the Castlegar complex would be the primary people managing bookings, and that we would figure out some sort of regular reporting to the commission so that ideally we could be proactive with this process versus reacting where suddenly there's an issue or something that isn't working well for people. I'd want to be able to create some kind of reporting structure both ways, from commission, from the village, from the RDCK, so that we can make sure this works for everyone. So that, in a really quick nutshell, is hitting on number 5 in that recommendation.
This all sounds really, really workable. I think you did a good job. Thank you.
Through the
If I could-
chair. Oh, sorry, did I cut off somebody else? Through the chair, alternate director Fike. What I'm looking at, Tricia, is like you said, somebody wants to come in next week. So if somebody came in next week, just hypothetically, and everything was in place, so they would come in on March 6th, and they wanted to book something for April the 9th. so that, more than a month ahead of time. But what I see in the RDCK responsibility is specific to third-party bookings, and this is some of your points further down. You say they're advancing any request to the Recreation Commission for consideration should a request fall outside the permitted bookable time. So let's just say they wanted to book on a Sunday, which is in public time. So we would have to, that person would have to wait until the May meeting in order to get a request, whereas they came in a month ahead of time, and we weren't able to fulfill the request. So I guess what I'm interested in is something that would accommodate those people. And, because it seems impractical that the request comes in and it's in public times. This goes back to the Aikido groups on a Sunday. So I guess trying to get some reasonable decision-making process that people could come in and get a decision on an Aikido function on a Sunday without having to wait for a commission meeting 2 months down the road or 3 months down the road. And I guess what I'm thinking is Recreation Commission 6 is philosophically agreed to third-party bookings within public times, and has also philosophically agreed to RDCK staff permission to approve third-party bookings without requiring full Rec 6 approval during scheduled commission meetings, if those activities fall within RDCK staff third-party gym usage recommendations, which we've just gone through. So that's a bit wordy, but I'm trying to say, if somebody comes, is the commission okay with a group that ticks all the boxes? They make a request. So that request doesn't have to, for approval, doesn't have to wait 2 months for approval from the commission as we're meeting now. But if we've agreed to only permitting uses to support individual health and wellness with a focus on physical activity, blah, 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 that point two, then RDCK staff at Castlegar could say yes or no to that based on what we have put forth. So how clear am I on that? Not clear? Because one of your recommendations, third-party bookings, details for consideration from you, Tricia, said bookings are only permitted during the non-public times. Well, that's what I'm talking to. If a request came in for a non-public time, some way that RDCK staff in Castlegar, who are hired to make decisions, could make that decision based on our recommendations.
So through the chair, I'm not sure if that's directed to me specifically, Commissioner Fike, but I can certainly answer something that I think might work in what you're saying. Because I'll use the Aikido one as an example. It might be that you could authorize staff to book something outside of outside of, I'm getting my
Guaranteed
words
public
confused.
time?
Guaranteed
Inside
public
of
time,
public
yeah. But if it's deemed a one-off booking versus a continuous booking, because for example, the Aikido one might make sense. One is we've got time to promote it. We can make sure the public's well aware of the fact that, the space is not available over that particular weekend or whichever the days were. Versus if it's something where you say, boy, we've got somebody that's coming in every Sunday from 2 to 4. That might feel more problematic long term. And if you had multiple requests like that and wanted to revisit what you were willing to protect as public time, then the commission could have that conversation. As I kind of alluded to in an email with Commissioner Law earlier today, these can sound well and good until they don't work. And it's that group that suddenly decides this is a really great opportunity and starts to impact public time in ways that you don't fully anticipate that could be more problematic. As a staff person, I would be more comfortable knowing that a one-off booking could be considered without commission approval, but maybe there's some correspondence that we are required to provide so that at least you're aware that that decision has been made, versus it being too open-ended, if that makes sense.
Supplemental through the chair. So is there some wording that we could walk away from this meeting so that we could expedite decisions on third-party bookings? Like I totally get, Trish, what you're saying about, one-offs. Could we not incorporate, I don't know, wordings that could anticipate that? And it's a pilot project. Like, it works until it doesn't work. Well, that's basically my life, so it's just the way we try something, but I'm just trying to expedite the process and get away from commission having to make, so RDCK is going to advance any request to the Recreation Commission for consideration should a request fall outside the permitted bookable times. Is there any way around that we could put forth as a pilot project so that we don't have to wait till the May 8th meeting in order to make a decision on a request? Somebody came from, say, Hills and wanted, and their request is for a month ahead of time, and we still can't fulfill it. It just, I'm trying to get around that somehow, if we can expedite it.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Yeah, sorry, I
Through the
should say
chair?
I'm finished, yeah.
Well, and sorry, and I just don't want to step on Casey's toes. So what I would recommend through the chair might be an additional recommendation to the administrative practice. So I would leave which one is it? Number 1 alone. Because basically that's saying you're committed to offering third-party usage during non-public times, period. What you might be able to add, and I'm not going to get the wording quite right, is that you also philosophically will allow third-party bookings during public time for one-off rentals, period. And I would maybe leave it at that. And then in the supporting documentation, we could figure out what's the communication strategy to make sure that commission is aware that that has happened. Because suddenly, you can imagine, let's pretend it's someone calls up the RDCK tomorrow and says, I'm interested in booking Saturday and Sunday at the end of March for an Aikido event. And we say it's a one-off activity. So as much, and this is what's interesting in our language, one-off means it's one, the actual activity is occurring under one contract, or that's not even the right way to say it. But if the event itself, even though it's happening over 2 days, would still be deemed a one-off event. It's not recurring over multiple months, if that makes sense. So we may say, okay, great. Under this new language, then we can book the gymnasium, and then we would communicate to commission that, hey, by the way, Saturday and Sunday on this particular weekend, just so you're aware, isn't going to be available to the public. And you may go, okay, that's great. And then a month later, I go, hey, guess what? Another group has come in and said this is also what they'd like to do. And suddenly, your Saturday and Sunday time went from 100% availability in a month to 25, 50, 75% available. And it's where that can just become problematic. Again, I think it will work as a pilot. I think it's worthy of caution. Turning that entirely over to staff to make that executive decision. I don't know what demand you will have. And so I'm being the cup half empty kind of person in this meeting, largely to help make sure that people are really thinking that through. Because it's easier to add more opportunity than sometimes to take away opportunity. And so my caution is go slow to go fast. And I would prefer that there was really limited language on what staff were authorized to do in public time.
Through the chair, I can respond, but I'd love to hear other points of view from the commission. If you have any points of view, I could go on, but I don't want to take up time unnecessarily.
Thanks, alternate. Thanks,
Through the chair.
Director Pike. Yeah, go ahead, Director Johnson.
Yes. I was talking to Chair Law earlier today, and I brought up the situation where we had this summer wildfire disaster, and here is space that might might be very useful for disaster services, such as a resiliency center during the times of crisis. And I'm wondering whether there is some way that we can include that into the wording, or whether there's something that we can put in there that makes it easy to take over that facility for a disaster service when that disaster strikes, and we don't want to have to call the whole commission together and say, "Hey, can we do this?" That should be something that we have anticipated, and there should be a method of handling that.
Thank you, Director or Commissioner Johnson. To Tricia, I brought that forward with an email, and you informed me that the contract that you gave as an example covers off a section around service interruptions. Regarding specific wording, perhaps that's something we can add in for disaster. I know it talks about equipment and things like that, and malfunction, or some really interesting words. Insurrection is one of them. But sorry, Director Main, I apologize. I know you had your hand up there, but I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I understand what you're saying. However, the legislation around emergencies and disasters specifies that the emergency services can take whatever resources they need. So we don't have to put it in our structure. Oh yeah, we'll allow this to be used in emergency. In an emergency, a wildfire, a disaster, that it doesn't require our permission. So I think we're trying to foresee too many things, and too many things that are already covered by other legislation or other practices or other services. And also, it's a pilot project. Let's take what we've got, let it run, and see what happens. We're already planning to review it. So let's let the community use the facility. Then we can review how everything has gone. We don't have to foresee every exigency right now.
Thank you, Director May, for your points around the emergency, for the use of the space, and also the pilot project. Tricia, did you want to any supplemental to what has been said so far, or should I carry on with the commission members for any input on this subject?
Maybe just one small piece of clarification is the contract language that Commissioner Law was talking about earlier would actually give us the right to say the facility is not available even if you have booked it, in the event something like what Commissioner Main is talking about were to happen, where suddenly local government resources need to be used in an emergency situation. The contractual agreement would say, guess what? You can have a service interruption whether you've got a contract signed with us or not, for any number of reasons, whether that's a building issue, an emergency situation, a host of different things fall into that category that the contract would outline to the renter.
Thanks, Tricia, for that clarification. So just rounding back to the philosophy around being able to book during public time for one-off events. Is there other input from commissioners or directors on that aspect of this discussion? Director Popoff? I think you might be muted. Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Director Popoff.
Yeah, I'm muted here. That's why you can't hear me. So anyways, I would agree with Director Main. This is a pilot project. We're looking for problems that might not exist. Let's run the pilot project, and see what happens. If we encounter these issues that John has brought up, and very legitimate issues, I'm not downplaying the issue that was brought up. Let's run the pilot project and see what comes up. If they come up, we can always adjust. It is a pilot project. And I like the suggestion that in the contract, when you sign with somebody, that the facility can be taken back in the event of an emergency situation. That would be my comments on this.
Thank you, Director Popoff. Any other comments on this topic from commissioners or directors? John.
Yeah, I'll come in one more time if nobody else has any comments. So just moving forward then, this pilot project we're still, the RDCK responsibilities are are advancing any requests to the Recreation Commission for consideration should a request fall outside the permitted bookable times. Is that what I'm perceiving? I'm trying to get around that, but is that the pilot project that we're ratifying? For RDCK responsibilities, Tricia?
I know what you're trying to do. At least what I'm sensing from the commission is what your desire is. I'm trying to think of what the best way to word that, and the words are escaping me at the moment, but I want to say something along the lines of maybe it's direction to my staff, I shouldn't say my staff, RDCK staff, that should they receive a request. So I will come back to your question, Commissioner Fike, in a second. Because what I need to do is ultimately take this document and give it to staff and say, this is now the direction you have in order to do your job to book this space should a request come in. And so part of me needs to give them direction on what to do, what the permitted uses are, when they can book, what the hours of operation are, so that they've got a box to work in. And so, but what I think might work, and again, I'm going back to the pilot comment of a couple of the commissioners, might be that should you receive a request that comes outside of the bookable time, that they talk to me, that they have to come and talk to a senior manager within the RDCK, and I would be responsible for saying, does this align with what commission is generally looking to accomplish based on the conversations that I get to have at these meetings? So it might be that commission's responsibility is we're open to booking outside of during a public time with senior management's approval. So in other words, on one hand, you're saying, yes, staff, go ahead and consider a booking that falls during public time. But we also don't want that to sit with just any staff working through the mechanics of booking a space. We actually want that to be thought of as to, does this really work? And so for me, I would be looking at saying, boy, have we had any other requests that are impacting public time in the winter months? Is it something that's frequent? Does this sort of fit with what commission is doing? And then I am responsible for saying, I need to write an email to the commission and say, hey, just so you know, we've received a couple of requests. This is what we've approved, or this is why we denied it. And it might be that any number of reasons. And I think that can become part of the reporting that somewhat takes it out of the waiting for a commission meeting to report. I think there might be other ways we can streamline communication that kind of meets what you're talking about, Commissioner Fike, but also put some bookmark around this to have a level of control. I would feel more comfortable with that.
Okay, the supplemental, Trish. Yeah, so I mean, I play around with some wording about so recreational commission 6 is philosophically agreed to one-time third-party bookings within public times, and is also philosophically agreed to give RDCK staff permission to approve third-party bookings without requiring full Rec 6, I can send this to you, approval during scheduled commission meetings, if those activities fall within RDCK staff third-party gym usage recommendations. So, that's essentially, I think what that wording says, and I guess what I want to do is, I hope to have, if we walk away from this meeting tonight, there is something in your understanding of the commission, that the commission says, yeah, third-party bookings within public times on a one-off situation, that's okay for you guys to make the decision on it. Because again, going back to Leah's comment, it's a pilot, and I don't think we want to get perfect in the way of good. So I'm not sure if that makes sense. I'd love to hear more comments from other commission members.
If I may, Trisha's suggestion that it be referred to senior staff, that covers it. Otherwise, we're getting into operations. The more the more individual specific occurrences that we're trying to anticipate, the more operational we're getting, where our job actually is policy. Particularly for a pilot program, I think we're good. And if uses outside of, if scheduling uses outside of what we've already described gets referred to a senior staff member, so that they don't have to bother directors on our personal time, because we're not 9 to 5 workers here. So I'm happy with the suggestion that was made.
Sorry, so through the chair. So what suggestion are you happy with, Leah?
Tricia's. Refer it to senior staff.
Okay, so that policy needs to be, is there any wording that we need to give to Tricia as a commission while we're together to formalize that in any way?
I don't think so, but it needs to be a group decision.
That's what I'm saying. Do we need to go through and say, okay, are we happy with Tricia making the decision on a one-off inside public times? Do we agree as a commission? I think we need to at least go around
refer
the
it to
table.
senior staff rather than specifying Tricia. It would be referred to senior staff.
Senior staff, okay, but I think we still need to go around the table. Is that the direction? Is there any opposed to that, I guess?
Thanks, Director Fike. I think Tricia has a good solution there, and we want to be able to be timely. It's a pilot project. If we can take the opportunity to see what kind of usage we're going to have. And I mean, I think, going a little bit beyond maybe is a good way. I mean, I hear not going too far is important too, and overstepping, with what we're willing to do. But I think if we have senior staff input, and then if that can, be communicated to the commission, and then if there is any, known local level issues, I mean, I think that the senior staff would hopefully be able to take in to account some groups that are using that space on a regular basis, even, through public time, whether volleyball or pickleball groups and things like that, but just being able to close the loop of communication, but allow for the ability to have these kinds of opportunities for the space to be fully utilized as best possible. So I'm good with staff direction, but that's a good question. Do we need specific wording around that? Tricia, do you have any input on this, on needing specific wording, or?
Through the chair, I think, Casey, through the chair, what would make sense for me is that from our discussion tonight, I can try to fine tune a little bit of that supporting document that's there, and try to put some of that wording in place. And even there's a few kind of governing principles that I've heard a few of you talk about too, like we want to be responsive. We want to be timely with being able to get back to people. There's a few things that helps guide staff if they get into a situation where they have to make a decision. Like myself, someone in my position that is trying to say, what do I think is in the interest of what commission is wanting to do that is sort of outside of the especially in particular outside of like it or during public time, I would be comfortable with that. And so I think I could probably fine tune this a little bit that kind of aligns a little bit more with some of our discussion from tonight from the staff report. And then that could at least be a living document that sits with the commission. And we can bring it back in May, and then it sits as a guiding document that's feeding this whole initiative.
Yeah, if I may make a comment through the chair, is I concur with Director Main. Our responsibility is governance, not operations. But we're getting into detail of operations, etc. So with the situation there, and I fully respect what Commissioner Fike is trying to say, that there could be potential problems with that, just excluding rentals during public time. So if it gets escalated to senior management knows what the intent of this commission is. And if senior management feels that they require commissions or a governance on this issue, the chair can call a meeting at any time. And we can resolve that issue pretty quickly.
Through the chair, one thing I can add to the document, and Director Popoff, thank you for the wording because it makes sense to me, is one thing in the supporting documentation that we could add is what the intent of this whole initiative even is. And that also would provide a lot of clarity around why we're doing this, and then would further support staff making a decision based off of a guiding document. So that could also work.
Thank you, Tricia and Director Popoff. It seems like we may have some way forward here. Director Fike, did you want to weigh in any further? Are you all right with Tricia taking it from this meeting and coming back on May? And we're staying away from operation issues right now, but we're leaving it in the hands of senior staff and getting this pilot off the ground.
Through the chair, yeah, no, I'm fine with all the statements that just happened. No, that's good. And if we have some staff's knowledge of the intent of the commission, I guess my concern would be if you're away, Trish, or you move on to another job or something else, the intent moves with you from this commission. So there could be wording, but you'll come back with it. No, I'm happy. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right. So Tricia, that's item number 5. Do you feel like you have enough to go on from the commission right now in regards to that draft document?
Yes, I definitely do. And maybe just to circle back for one quick second on Commissioner Fike's comment about, if staff move or change or something like that happens, that's exactly the purpose of having that guiding document in place, is so that you do have something to reference to say, this captures the essence of our conversation and why we were taking this on. And hopefully I can make it robust enough that, heaven forbid I fall off the face of the earth tomorrow, that everybody would have something that they could actually work with from there, or at least give you a good step in the right direction. So no problem. So I can continue on if you're good with that, Chair.
Thank you. I'm good as long as the commission's good. If there's anybody else with any input, say now or we'll move right on.
So number 6 and 7 are I think, are going to be pretty easy to deal with. The one that did not transfer over into a recommendation is the one confirming the fees to be charged for the space that's being rented. So I believe chair law circulated. Sorry, Casey, I'm putting you on the spot. Did you circulate that, or were you just bringing it to this meeting? I couldn't remember.
No, we were going to bring it up for bringing it
Okay,
up in context here at the meeting, but I can put
Okay,
it in
perfect.
the chat here.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. So you'll recall back at one of the meetings that we were talking about third-party bookings, we also talked about fees and charges associated with third-party usage. And so in the document, you can see that, sorry, in section 4, which is, I'll move it over into a recommendation once the recommendation's confirmed with the group, is that staff are recommending that the fees and charges that are currently in the community services fees and charges schedules for what's called small and medium sized rooms would be those charged for the uses of the gymnasium. And so it looks like Casey, I think Casey's typing as we are speaking. So youth recreation, I can maybe elaborate as Casey's going on here. So youth recreation could be, I don't know, children's soccer program, kids aikido group, any of those types of activities you can think of that youth might play in a physical activity type of program. Adult recreation could be anything related to an adult use. So say you had somebody that wanted to, well, I'm going to stick with aikido only because I can't think much beyond or be more creative than that. But say it's in an adult aikido group that is looking to book the space. That might fall to adult recreation. Fundraising nonprofit event. I would be very surprised if those are the types of things that you would ever see in that space, but you might. I just don't imagine it to be the types of usage I think you're going to see. I'm thinking you're going to see youth recreation, potentially adult recreation, but I think what's driven a lot of the conversation is around commercial usage. So this would be your private fitness instructor, your somebody that's basically looking to run their business, they're charging admission or registration fees would fall into a commercial usage activity. And so Casey's pulling up kind of the detail also that falls into what is classified under youth and recreation. So these are all the different kind of categories of youth recreation that could fall into those fees. So regular usage is just what it means, like regular usage. Community events, again, aikido could fall into some of that. I'm not sure how that structure looks. I don't know enough about the event. And certainly like school groups if somebody wanted to use something along those lines. But the fees you see there are the ones that are currently in the fees and charges policy for small and medium room rentals, which is the only thing that makes sense for the gymnasium space.
Thank you, Tricia, for that. Commission members, directors, anyone want to discuss the fees? Bring forward any points on it.
I do have a question to Trish. Do those fees that you brought in there fall in line with the bigger centers' fees and rentals?
They do for that
see you nodding your
size
head.
of, yes, they do for the size of space. So in in the Castlegar complex, you would see a whole barrage of different fees based on the different types of rooms that are there or combinations of rooms that can be booked. So the only fee that I pulled out was specific to what's called a small or medium sort of meeting room space. But yes, they align with other fees in other spaces.
Yeah, my concern would be is we spent a lot of time discussing fees and charges at the regional district table, and then to do something different here would be a little bit of an issue or a concern to me. But what you mentioned is this relates to small room rentals or whatever, and it's in our fees and charges throughout the whole regional district, the 3 major facilities. That's great.
Thanks for your comments and questions, Director Popoff. Is there any other comments, questions? I just was just to confirm, Tricia, the adult recreation, so regular private community events. You said whether Aikido falls into that or not, or it's an event, but you did say, if I'm not mistaken, that if there's going to be ongoing classes by any group, if there's any, even if they're, I guess then if they fall in nonprofit or not, that would make a delineation. I'm just trying to think, like with the Aikido group and Rebecca's email, she talks about the cost structure and how they're keeping it fairly low is what they're after, because the amount of money that they're charging is very limited from their foundation to go towards fees. But do you know where that would fit in? Or I know you said you're not sure about the event, but the actual classes, if they're going to run, where do you think that might land? If you could.
Yeah, through the chair, that would fall to adult recreation, assuming it's adults participating. Yeah, if it was, say, the children's program, like again, assuming that they're not a for-profit agency. If they are, then they're the commercial usage side. So, and that's where understanding the type of usage and what they're doing becomes the question. And that's where all the communication work ends up landing with RDCK staff. So if they're like a government agency can't support by legislation, we can't support a for-profit agency. So anybody that's not a registered society and an actual nonprofit would be charged the commercial usage rate. So let's say Casey wants to do he only wants his 6 favorite people to go play volleyball with him on Tuesdays from 4:30 to 5:30 and doesn't want anyone else to come. So he's not a commercial entity. He's not charging registration fees, but he wants exclusive use because he wants to control who is going to that space for whatever the reason may be. Casey would be charged an adult recreation per hour fee for use of that space. If Casey was saying, hey, you know what? I really want to make sure that kids growing up have the chance to play volleyball, and I always want to be able to offer that opportunity to the community, but I need to be able to book it because I need kids to come and I need this set time. I need to make sure the space is available, but I'm not charging fees for it. That would fall to the youth recreation fee. The minute you're really, I think the use that I've heard this group talk about most is that group fitness. Well, the dog training one would have also, even though that wouldn't be a permitted use under what we've just talked about tonight, but that would all fall to that kind of commercial usage fee. So that's the differentiation. Our staff have those conversations all the time with groups, so they're very clear on when and how to charge that fee structure. I think the one where I see commercial use potentially showing up in your area is going to be around potentially group fitness.
Okay, thank you for that rundown. Appreciate that clarification. All right. On that note, wrapping up that item, is there any further conversation that needs to occur from this commission before we can move forward on Tricia's report in regards to fees? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. If you don't mind, Tricia, I think that's your number 7.
No problem.
Oh, sorry, 6.
No problem. And thanks for everyone's patience walking through this in detail. So 6 and 7 kind of go together. I think I can join them for you. So I'm recommending a start date of August 1st. I think that's a reasonable start date where we can say as of August 1st, people could start booking space. And just for clarity, what that means is it will take us time to set up computer systems, train staff, make sure all of the details are in place, set up our communication strategies within the gym talk to the village staff and just make sure everything's on the up and up with them. And so we would start taking bookings as of August 1st. We'd kind of probably have to have some practice in place where we could entertain requests probably starting in July. I just know that it will take some time to sort that out. So this is why I'm suggesting August 1st. And then number 7 is really dealing with that pilot period conversation that we've had a couple times tonight. And I'm just suggesting that it would be 1 year from the date of commencement of the project. So roughly August of 26, give or take, or maybe it's the fall commission meeting or something like that.
Great. Thanks, Tricia, for setting that timeline and coming forward with the pilot solution. Is there any input from commission on that timeline? And any concerns in regards to, I suppose, well, that's the separate parts of the pilot, the 7, but I think you're talking a little bit about both there. Commission members, directors, no. Hearing, seeing none. So that concludes, if I'm not mistaken, Tricia, you've covered off point 7, the pilot project. Thank you very much. All right. Just pulling back to the top of the agenda here. All right. So we have our motion. Let's move forward on that. We've gone through the report and the suggestions. Thank you very much. And look forward to seeing, an update hopefully in May, if possible, then prior to the initiation of this pilot project. All right, moving on, we've got item number 8.2, which is the service 229 2025 draft financial plan that is attached to this agenda. And I see, Tricia, would you be answering questions on budget? I think this is more just for review, as the budget has already been finalized, and it's just an opportunity for the commission to understand how the money is being spent and the service area and how it's being utilized. So I'll turn it over to anybody who wants to discuss the budget. Director Main, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I think, it's a reasonable budget. It looks like it just has cost of living increases. I just want to comment that since our budgets have been going public, there's been some pushback, some, dissatisfaction with constantly increasing budgets. And I understand that from the point of view of our residents, our taxpayers. And as a director, I also see the necessity for fees to keep pace with inflation. But then on top of that, the bombshell that hit today with the tariff wars, people are going to be really hurting. And so I think we just need to be prepared to hear some pushback on the budget, even though it's a very reasonable cost of living increase. And I just wanted that to be out there in the discussion.
Thank you, Director Main. Is there any other comments or questions on the budget from members of the commission here?
Through the chair.
Yeah, just a comment, if I may, is we had a budget presentation in New Denver here a little while ago, and they basically reflected what Director Main said about taxation, etc., and especially with all the tariffs that are being imposed. We're going to be going through a pretty rough time, but the budget is reasonable. And, we did have comments. It was presented, and the people that showed up to the meeting, I believe, understood. Maybe there was 1 or 2 that had some issues about it, but the rest were okay with that. And there was not that many people. I think there was about 12 people or 14 people at the top. So anyways, I'm sorry if I interrupted you, Commissioner Fike.
No, through the chair, I was just looking briefly at the salaries, S1010, and the to date is 7,182 in the 2024 budget, and then but the budget was for 15,000, and then for next year it's the 2025 budget for salaries. I guess that's bins cleaning is 16,000. So 2024 to date, Walter, do you know what to what date the $7,000 out of the $15,000 budgeted would be for? I'm just wondering if we need that much in the salaries budget.
You're muted there.
Frankly, I'm not too sure. But, what happens is the budget has not been finalized completely. We haven't had all the reports. So when it says today 7,182, there could be still outstanding charges.
Through the chair, yeah, that's what I understand. I just wonder what date the $7,000 has been spent to. It's not important, and the budget looks fine to me. We've got sufficient money and equipment to maybe upgrade another couple of pieces of equipment or even look at floors or something. Anyway, no, it seems good to me. Thanks, Walter.
Yeah, no, like, 7,182 is roughly half of the proposed 15,000 that was there. So half the money hasn't been spent yet, or was spent but not accounted for. And that's basically, but whatever the salaries were, and if it's going to be less than the budgeted amount, the rest goes into a prior year surplus and gets carried over.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you, directors. Any further comments, questions on the budget? Okay, seeing and hearing none. That budget is, I just want to check here if we need a motion to receive it. No, it's been received just by being on the agenda. Perfect, thank you. Okay, if the commission's happy, I'll move on to our next final item under this section. That section, it's number 8.3, the 2025 grant intake schedule. So we have the opportunity now to set out the schedule for the spring grant for the 5,500 that the commission will allocate. I took a look at the schedule going forward for our next meeting, being that it is going to be May 8th, and just walking it back from there. I just got my calendar up here. May 8th. So last time we set the budget, or the grant intake schedule, we left some time for staff to compile the submissions and send to commission to review prior to and score utilizing a scoring system. However, that did not seem to be the most effective tool at the time. We did try doing the scoring prior to, but I think given the ability of the commission, its time and needs, I think resuming the process, I don't know if we need to have an official motion to go back to the way we were doing things before, but I think we can still utilize the grading material that was provided for commissioners to review the grants and bring forward their allocations. And then if the commission is still happy with doing the grant deliberations during the meeting, I think we can just keep a schedule here where okay, I'm seeing nodding heads there. So May 8th is our next meeting. And we've got a week prior to May 1st, looking at the publication schedule for the Valley Voice. I've got March 27th or April 10th would be the publication dates leading up to April. If we want to advertise and leave it open for approximately 3 weeks, we could. If we want to go a little bit more earlier for a month than March 27th. So I'm looking at potentially suggesting March 27th or April 10th that the applications be advertised through the Valley Voice and other means, and then brought forward to be open until let's see, we said May 1st. I don't know if other commissioners feel that's too long. 4 weeks is too long, or if less is better. Anybody have any input on that? You're good with that?
Through the chair, I'm good with March 27th for opening and May 1st for closing, and that gives staff a week to get us the accepted grants. That seems fine to me. Longer is better, I think, but I'd love to hear from other people as well. And longer in terms of the grants being open.
Sure. Yeah. Any commission members want to speak on that? Or having it open for a full month? Oh, yeah. Heather, go ahead. Chair recognizes you there. Thank you. You're on. Yeah, muted still. You're. I've got you on mute there, Heather.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute it for a minute. So I'm curious if 1 week is enough time for the staff to process, depending on how many grant applications there are. Do they start processing as they come in, or do they sit down and do them all at once? And is the first week of May long enough?
Fair point. Tricia, do you have much? I don't know if that's really your purview. The grant. I know that whoever's acting administration will receive them, ensure their validity, and then have them all put together as part of the agenda package and sent to the commission. So I don't know that there's a significant amount of. I suppose they need to be vetted, so there is some time there. So it's not. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Tricia? Initially.
Through the chair, I'm just thinking that if your meeting is May 8th, technically your agenda would be due on basically the 1st, give or take.
Sure.
And so therefore I would say, one is that to have it on the agenda and have that package ready for you, I would say it wouldn't be enough time. But it could. I'm thinking that I think a week is enough time if it aligns with the agenda preparation so that you can get all the details that you need in order to review it as a commission. So I'm almost thinking you could close it even like the 23rd or 24th of April, and that's still open for basically four solid weeks ish.
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable. And even if we close it on the 25th, would be a Friday, April 25th. And if we have it open March 20, well, the advertisement would be out March 27th. But we could either open it the day that the advertisement hits publication, so the 27th of March, and then closing April 25th. That's a significant amount of time there. And on that, thumbs up. Okay. That does not require. I'm trying to remember if we need a motion. That's a staff direction. I think that's just a staff direction on that one. That sound okay? Accurate? Okay, perfect. And those dates you've got them down okay? 25th. Okay, and you're nodding your head. Thanks, Alana. Okay, perfect. All right. Now we're section 9, which is public time. So calling for questions from the public at 8:43 p.m. We have one member of public here. If you'd like to ask or any questions from the commission, now's your opportunity. Thank you. Okay, no questions. All right, next meeting. Moving right along, being that there's nobody to provide questions. Their next scheduled meeting for May 8th at 7 p.m. 2025 is scheduled for the Memorial Hall in Silverton. That said, I was going to make a suggestion, being that we've had some audio issues in the past, being in the room, and then those online not being able to quite be able to follow along without some significant effort. I've had a couple meetings at the Fireweed Hub in New Denver, where approximately 10 or so people have attended, and the online quality has been quite good. I did a comparison to the Knox Hall for cost. For an hour, 1 hour at Knox Hall, it's $50 an hour. Fireweed Hub is $25, so it's about half the cost. Sorry, 25 for 2 hours, 50. Anyways, it's half the cost. But and then I'm not sure what Silverton's cost is. I don't know if Leah, you know that off the top of your head. I couldn't quite find it on the website, but I just thought maybe to suggest to the commission.
I don't know. I don't know the cost of Memorial Hall, but the Fireweed Hub sounds like probably our best option, because either Memorial Hall or Knox Hall, both of them have acoustic issues for online meetings. So
right,
Fireweed would be great.
Okay. Does any other members of the commission want to talk about where we'd like to hold the next meeting, or if they're okay with trying out the Fireweed Hub as an addition to the hybrid meeting option online? Okay, thumbs up for Erica. Perfect. Okay, John, great. Looking, seeing, hearing no comments on that. So our next meeting, I would like to book the Fireweed Hub in New Denver for May 8th, 2025 at 7 p.m. If that's possible. Alana, we could add that in the notes. Great. All right. That takes us to the adjournment of the meeting. If I could have someone move to adjourn the meeting, please. I've got Heather Robertson, their hand up, and then seconded by Leah. Director Main, thank you.
Yeah.
And any opposed to concluding this meeting, please say now. Looking, seeing, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to introduce Heather. I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself. And Mitchell, I know I missed you last time as well. We went right into grant deliberations, but just a quick opportunity if either of you wanted to introduce yourself to the commission, because I neglected to do that last time. Floor is yours. I'm done.
I was at the last meeting in November, so I do recognize many.
Right.
And
Thanks,
I do
Mitchell.
apologize for leaving. I had to take an important phone call, so I do apologize for that.
No worries, no worries. Thanks for being here, and yeah, maybe we'll have to chat with you a little bit about some youth representatives from the school. Maybe we can get them on board for the next meeting, if possible.
Absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. And Heather, anything you wanted to add? First meeting with us. Thank you for coming and doing a tour of the gym the other day with me. I really appreciate that. It was nice that you wanted to get up to speed on everything there. So appreciate that.
I don't really have anything to say, and maybe if next meeting is in person, then I can just shake hands with everyone in person. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right, that sounds good. That's it for me. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.